You don't learn unless you do new things. And you don't do new things without making mistakes. Well, I'll tell you what hasn't changed since Luca Pacioli came up with debits equal credits, the advising the clients. and the advice is always going to be needed. And it's the CPA, because we're the only ones who have access to all the information. And another growth area is the accounting firms are going to grow larger managing money, because the clients are going to want everything under one umbrella.
Welcome to Accounting High.
Introducing the star of our show,
Scotty and Ed Mendlowitz.
We're gonna have a problem here.
Students, you are in for a treat today. I have an author with me today, a longtime faculty of the show. I believe you're the superintendent here at Accounting High. This is your fourth time here on the show. First time was on the Sons of CPAs with Ackerman, and we had you on. So the first episode, So Many Things to Learn, is in our top 10 of all time. It's number 9 in our top 10 episodes of all time on the show. That's a big accomplishment here, since I think we've published over 300 episodes. So we had you on again. You interviewed me for our students. We talked about being the chairman of the board at my firm, from CEO to chairman of the board. And then we also had you on for our wildly popular episode. You can catch that on YouTube. It's also on the podcast, but it was our timesheet debate between you and Ron Baker. Students, can I have a big round of applause for our superintendent here, Edward Mendlowitz, CPA. Ed, you're also a recent published author, written many, many books before this one, but as of the most recent book, you sent me a signed copy. You sent it to me to give to my daughter, since she's going to be going into accounting. I'm going to share it with you here, students. I would call this maybe somewhat of a book report today, because we're going to get an extended version of this. Ed's going to give us all the behind-the-scenes extended cut of his book, all the things that he hasn't shared with the public yet. I'm going to get the scoop today, so we're going to hear more. Ed is, I don't know if this is self-proclaimed America's most successful CPA, but that's what it says on the book. Did you come up with this title, The Growth, Development, and Rise of One of America's Most Successful CPAs?
Yeah, I made it. I came up with the topic. I also came up. I am one of the most.
You think you are, or you are? I like how you said I am, and before you started with the thing.
I think I am, and I think I have a lot to. I think I can prove it in a lot of ways. Really.
What is success, Ed? What makes a successful CPA?
That's a great question. If you like what you do, if I tell my students they should speak to somebody who is in the early 50s and ask them if they had a good career, and look for the passion. If they tell you they had a good career, had a good job, they made good money, and there's no passion, that's not for you. I have a passion for what I did. I still got it.
You're still invigorated by this. You still love it.
You got to do it. I'll tell you what gets me excited. When I meet a young person who wants to start their own practice and they ask me for help, that really excites me.
You also get really excited when you meet a young person that wants to go into accounting. As we discussed on your last episode with you and I, we discussed my daughter was excited. She also got to attend a conference, and she had a great time at the accounting conference too, and met a whole bunch of accountants. Like, she sees all the benefits of accounting. She sees everything that it's provided for me, for all of the people in accounting that she met. She got to hear from you. She did start your book too. You sent it, and she started reading it, and she learned everything she could about accounting. And then guess what? She says, I think I want to go into psychology.
The purpose of the book was to get her to want to be an accountant.
Yeah.
It backfired.
It backfired. She read your book and fell asleep reading it and woke up the next day, and she told me she wanted to get into psychology.
You know, when I had my practice in New York, I would have clients who had children who thought they wanted to be an accountant. So I'd say, well, let them spend a day with me. They could follow me around for a day, and they could see what accountants really do. So I had this one client. I did this maybe 6, 7 times. I had one client, husband and wife were both biology professors at Columbia University. And they said their son wants to become an accountant. I said, great, let him spend a day with me. I arranged a fantastic day. And then I spoke to him a couple of weeks later. I said, how did your son like it? He said, he decided he's going to go into biology. He thought accounting was much more boring than it was. And I showed him some really exciting things. I think it's not fair.
So it's the same story. You know what it is, Ed? I honestly do think she'll probably still end up going into accounting realistically after she finds her own way through college. But who knows?
Well, if she likes psychology, I don't know what she would do, but a third of our job is psychology with our clients.
Probably more than a third if you run your own practice, because it's with your employees too.
That's right. You have to be I'm going to tell you a story that wasn't in the book.
Here we
Talking
go.
about psychology.
Exclusive.
When I had my practice, I did not want anybody to know what anybody else was making. And I kept it secret. And I let them know, I don't want you talking about what you make. And I would get pretty upset if you talked about it. One day, a guy comes into my office and says, I found out what Larry's making. And Larry's getting $10,000 more than I'm getting. And I'm much better than him. I want a raise. I said, no, you're getting the right salary. Larry, you're single. Larry has 10 kids, and I want Larry to work for me. And the only way he could work for me is if I could pay him something that he could afford to live on. Yeah. I said, you're going to go pretty far. Larry is going to be what he's doing for the rest of his life. But don't compare what you're making to him. Two different circumstances. And he bought it. He said, he recognized it. He said, fine, I understand.
Did he end up leaving anyway?
No,
the guy that was complaining?
He never left. I actually left the firm. I started the firm in 1974. And July 1st, 1988, I left. I formed another firm because I wasn't having that excitement that I wanted to have.
How long could you ever stand doing one thing before you decided to hop onto the next thing?
Oh, no, that's not. I had my own practice for a year. I became partners with two other guys for 3 years. I left them with one of the guys. We were together 14 years. Yeah. I left, we had a third partner, and I formed another firm on July 1st, 88 with Peter Weitzen. We're still partners. We still speak. We speak at least 3 times a week. So that's pretty long, from 1988 till today. We merged into Withum 20 years ago. And actually, I merged with Withum 20 years. We have a geezer group that we go to lunch periodically. I'm in touch with a lot of the younger staff who now have their own practices. A couple of them have 3 kids. 2 of them that I spoke to a few months ago, each have 3 kids now. They were both single when they met me. So I think I had longevity, but there were reasons why I left, why I went to the next phase.
But you still evolved your career and you kept growing within it. You didn't stay stagnant in anything.
I always wanted my own practice from the time I was a kid. My father was a CPA. And when I was 13, I started a business. And when you start a business, you got to advertise, you got to do things. So I was a business person. I wanted to be an accountant. And when I became an accountant, I pictured myself first as a business person, second as an accountant. And I could tell you one story in particular that I did, which I think I was one of the first. In 1993, we hired a full-time salesman who was not an accountant. So we had a small firm, we hired a salesman, and the reason I did that is Mr. Kellogg does not go to the grocery store to sell cornflakes and Rice Krispies. And if I wanted to grow, I couldn't be, and my partners couldn't be the main salesperson. So we hired a salesman, so we did that. So we were on the cutting edge. I started the conference format of CPE programs. Now you go to the AICPA and they have 6 5 programs a day. I started that in 1989. I wanted to do CPA for other accountants because I wanted other accountants to refer business to me. And I didn't want to sit through 8 hours of deferred income taxes. So I put together 8 one-hour programs. We hired a college professor to give a couple. Peter Weissman gave a couple. I gave a couple.
No.
And we gave that program 3 or 4 times the first year. By the way, we thought we were going to make a fortune on it because the first time we did it, we had 95 people.
Yeah.
Then we did it again in New York. We had about 80 people. We thought we were going to make money. And then what happened was the next year we did it, it bombed because it was the end of the reporting period.
Everybody already got all their CPE?
And they needed the CPA, and the timing that we did it just by coincidence was right. But we continued this for many years. It evolved to the Partners Network, where we had 150 people coming for free to a pre-tax season 5-hour CPA program.
I bet you had a ton of fun doing it, though. Even if you didn't make a whole ton of money, you probably had a lot of fun.
No. What happened, we were getting hundreds of thousands of dollars a year of referrals from that group. We didn't make money on the CPA. We lost. It was free.
Yeah.
Although we had an annual fee. And the annual fee actually covered the cost. But we found out that other accountants, I wanted to be the go-to guy for other accountants, stuff they couldn't handle. And we got tremendous referrals.
So you just built a referral base
of CPAs.
Yeah. This is before the internet.
Yeah, it was, 89, before the internet.
Before the internet was a thing. Like, before people were getting referrals from the internet, you were creating referral networks.
We did. And, I had a newsletter. I had the Edward Mendlowitz was the name of my firm. 1974, we started our firm January 1st. In 1974, I want to send out a newsletter. And I called it Siegel Mendlowitz Newsletter. Just before we typed
Before email.
Before email, a colleague, a guy that we sublet space to, came to me with a newsletter from Oppenheimer Pell Dixon. And it said OAD Newsletter. And he said, see, they got the same thing you're doing. So I said, if they, in those days you couldn't advertise. So I said, well, if they're doing OAD Newsletter, I could do S&M Newsletter. So I made up a masthead, S&M Newsletter. And I was stuffing the envelopes with my secretary, part-time secretary. And we're about 2/3 of the way through. I said, holy crap, S&M could mean something else.
Did she say something? Or
No, I don't think she realized. Neither one of us realized. And then it dawned on me.
I realized that when you first said it, but I didn't know where you were going with the story. So then what happened?
But I got to tell you what happened. People started sending names of people to put on the S&M newsletter list. And we used to play clients in Central Park. And we made up T-shirts that said S&M, North American softball team, we beat everyone.
And this was the CPA firm's softball team?
See, no, we played clients that were lawyers.
Yeah.
And I had 2 clients that would jog. By the way, we gave away over 600 T-shirts. We had clients jogging in Paris. They were 2 women, were both wearing the S&M T-shirt. They noticed that they became good friends.
So you kept the name of the newsletter. You didn't change it.
We didn't change the name of the firm. We made Poor Rich a Partner a year after we started. We didn't change the name for about 8 years.
Okay. Oh, I love this. This is some more behind the scenes stuff. Scandalous stories coming out of Ed today. Tell me, what was some of the inspiration then to do an extended? You're not writing an extended book, right? But you got some good stories or some other extended things. What are some of the other things that came up?
Well, actually, I wrote. First of all, I wrote. That's my 32nd book.
32nd book.
Yeah, I wrote.
Ed, you're one of the most prolific writers in accounting that exists. You write at least one weekly newsletter. How many things do you write weekly?
I
Let's just
write
say.
3 things weekly. I send out a weekly blog. Withum sends out a weekly blog that I write. I have a weekly column in Accounting Today that's haven't missed an issue in over 11 years. And I write a weekly Torah lesson from the Bible that I send to about 550 people. So I do this every week. Then I do other things, plus I have some client stuff I do. I write articles.
And so the start of it was the S&M newsletter that you were printing out and mailing before there was an email, right?
Actually, I'll tell you a little more about it. I tried to get published, and I couldn't get published. We used to have I went to a typing service. I'm talking about in the early 1970s, where we didn't have any of this stuff. I took an article, I sent it I gave it to a typing service who typed 12 original copies. I mailed it to 12 publications. None of them printed it. But I wanted to make myself an expert. So if you would come to me and you'd say, what's the tax aspects of podcasting? Oh, do I know anything about tax aspects of podcasting? I said, yeah, I wrote an internal memo. And I would go back to my office. I had a administrator that said, S&M internal staff memo, and I would write something about podcasting.
And then you would go pull up that index,
And I
then
would send it to that one person. And by writing the S&M newsletter, I was the publisher of the S&M newsletter. It gave me a credential. And through that, by accident, I met Martin Edelston. I was introduced to Martin Edelston, who made me famous. So I owe him a lot. I mentioned him in my book. I gave an obituary about him in my book. Very instrumental in my career.
So you had your own little database. It was like your Ed GPT. That's what you were using back then. And so you created this way to help people, just to access your own brain. If you had a thought or you had something you were going to write on, you wrote it, you posted it as a memo, but then you logged it. And now where is all that? Is all that online now? Do you have some kind of database?
That probably doesn't exist. But I did find, in 1981, I wrote a comic book staff memo. Because the staff weren't reading the stuff I told them to do. So I had a comic book drawn up. It was very nice. It came out very good. And I sent it into the CPA Journal. And I said, I'll send it to anybody that sends me $2 to cover the handling. And I got 2,000 requests, so it covered all my costs, including the artist. I found that about 2 years ago. I was throwing away stuff. I reprinted it, and I offered it to Accounting Today. And I would say over 1,000 people got copies of it.
Oh, wow.
And it's good. Every word, it was 8 pages. Every word is still relevant today. There's not one thing that's not true today.
So that's like a daily habit or ritual for you, is writing or just helping people. So it's like the drive to create something new. Like you've done baseball cards, you've done comics, you've done all kinds of silly things. So you're creating something new. You're helping people, you're informing, but you're also getting some fulfillment out of it too, I presume.
Well, I personally get very satisfied when I write something that I really like. And a few years ago, I wrote something I thought was great. I showed it to my son, who was a writer, professional, and I said, Andy, take a look at it. It's really good. He said, Dad, everything you write, you think is really good.
Oh, I love it. I can relate to that.
I enjoy sharing what I know. We're in a new age now, which is social media. And I tell people, there's something that's going to be after social media. That's what you got to learn about. Not what social media is today. What's going to come after. There's always going to be something new. And we got to work on it. And when I had my practice, postal mail, junk mail was what you did. And I figured out that if I mailed you something, if I mailed you a booklet, I mailed you a newsletter, whatever I mailed, you're going to sit on your desk for 2-3 weeks till you throw it out.
Yeah.
I've had people walking around with articles. 10 years, I wrote an article around 1976, 70, 77, 78. How to buy a business with no money by putting it into bankruptcy first and then using the assets to get the money to buy the business. I had people 10, 12 years after I wrote that walking around with that article. When they met me, they asked me about it.
Because you put hard copies out everywhere. You put your flyers.
Copies, and it sat on people's desk. I had teddy bears I sent to people. In fact, I have a ruler here.
Yeah.
I have different versions of ruler. This is my old name, my old firm name.
It's the brilliance of branding, though. You're branding it. You've got your personal brand embedded in there somewhere, some form of your business or you, in the personality of the article that you wrote, or just in the swag that you're creating.
And it was the continuity of letting them keep getting it. Not every week. In fact, we used to run a contest. I had my newsletter. We run a contest. I used to run a contest to guess what the stock market would be in a year. You had 6 things you had to guess. We had about 150 people entering it. I would post by name, not by name, by number, entry number, the 150 people. The prize, the first prize, every year was different. One year was an ounce of gold and a pound of silver. By the way, I won in about 14 years. I won it 3 times. I didn't keep the prize. I gave it to the second place guy.
But you predicted the price.
I predicted the interest rates, the stock market. I predicted all the things. 9 months. We had to post it by April 1st. You had to give me your entry by April 1st, and it was how the year ended. I won it 3 times. That got me a lot of financial planning business.
So it's similar to what you were saying to your son about look to what's after social media or what's coming next, because you have the perspective and you've been able to see before email and everything that you're doing. You're communicating to a mass audience. It's like you've always been doing one-to-many as best you could with what technology was available, right?
That's right. I was always, whatever it was, I was on the cutting edge of using it. Now, I'm not saying I was great at it, but don't forget, my competition were other CPAs.
Right.
But I was really at the forefront.
But look what you were doing. You were building your practice too. You were doing what that was, taking everything that they didn't want, right? Like whether you were teaching them CPE, giving them free CPE, and then said, give us that business, right? You're getting referrals.
We were a small firm. We did audits.
Okay.
So a lot of small firms didn't do audits. We got accounts needed clients who needed business valuation. I started doing business valuations.
Yeah.
I started doing peer reviews of other firms. I found out by doing peer reviews, 1 out of every 10 people I did the peer review for would recommend a major client to me every year.
Look at that. You always had that long view of how can I grow. Was it always to grow the business, though? Was it always seeking more opportunities to grow the firm?
It was always to grow the business, always to build. My motive was to build a business in 1987, 1988.
Business before an accountant, right?
Well, businessman first, accountant second. Because if I couldn't succeed in my own practice, I would get a job working as a CPA for somebody else. So the accountant came first. By the way, 1982, the Wall Street Journal wrote an article about what a great firm we had and what we did to jumpstart it. 1982. It was 42 years ago, 43 years ago.
About your firm?
About my firm.
S&M?
Edward Mendlowitz, yes. And a big article about us. One of the things we said in the article was that our biggest problem about growing was not getting business, we're getting staff. And that's
wow. Back then?
Back then.
Same problem we have now.
Same problem. And I've been talking about it every year and nobody listens.
And you're still boring them to death. You're still boring all the kids to death and letting them go into biology and psychology. We're
No.
not solving this problem here, Ed. How can we make accountants look more interesting?
Because you know what? I had very low. I only hired people out of school.
Yeah.
I tell people this is what you do, and I did it. I only hired people. When I merged with them, every single person working for me started with my firm. Started their careers. The marketing person, the admin person, the accountants. I practiced what I preach, and it worked.
Yeah.
People don't understand that you want to make a living. And you don't make a living by every 2 years hiring some jerk that's had 4 jobs before he came to you. And the reason you hired him is because he has experience. And the reason that he left is because he wasn't getting good experience. They don't get it. All the large firms, all the large successful firms hire out of school. Withum, I just found out 2 days ago, Withum had their annual State of the Firm. We hired over 500 new hires this year.
Wow.
Out of school. Half out of school, half for experience.
Do you ever meet any of these new hires? Do you ever come around? What does emeritus mean as far as
This means
that
I'm
goes?
no fart.
I know. Do you get to go just walk around and tell people stories and stuff? Like, what is that?
I used to do that, but since COVID, I really stopped doing it. But before COVID, I would take a group of interns every summer to Manhattan for a day. We'd spend a day in Lower Broadway, in Lower Manhattan, in Wall Street, and we'd have lunch at Francis Tavern, where Washington gave his farewell address. And then we went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I gave them my own private tour for 2 hours. I did this 3 years in a row with a group of about 6, 7, with one experienced staff, like a staff 2 person, and 6 interns. So I got to know all the interns.
Sounds like a field trip. That sounds dope.
I did spend a day. The firm paid for it. The firm was glad to do it. I had one intern. What used to happen, things are different today, but in my office, the guy would hire 2 groups of 6 interns for 6 weeks each for the summer. And I found out that he was having trouble keeping them busy. So I said to him, I could keep somebody busy, but they can't charge the time to the client. He said, it's okay. So I had free labor. Now, you heard of sustainability. One of the hot areas in public accounting today is sustainability, right?
Sure.
Okay. I wrote the first CPA program on sustainability for the New York State Society of CPAs. The first one. I was at the forefront. I saw this as the future. But I also realized that after a while, that at that point in time, it wasn't going anywhere. I had one of the interns spend 3 weeks writing the handout.
And that's the kind of stuff that everybody's talking about.
Then I took him with me when I presented it at the State Society. And then I arranged for him to have lunch and spend the afternoon in the New York office. And I had some of the younger people in New York spend time with him.
So what did you see?
Anyway, that guy's still with the firm.
Did you see future compliance opportunities with that? Or what was it you were writing about?
Well, I thought sustainability is a big area to audit the claims that companies make.
What were some of the claims they were making then?
Well, that they have diversity. Tiffany said that they're using ink in their brochures that are eco-friendly.
Eco-friendly.
But when I started doing it, there were 25 of the Fortune 500 had sustainability reports. Today, every one of them has a sustainability report. Mm-hmm. So this was brand new.
And who's going to do those reports? Accountants.
Well, accountants weren't doing them, but I said accountants could do it, and we are doing it. But it was too early, and it was as Bill Hagerman, who was the managing partner with him at the time, said. He said, "It's a great idea. You're not going to do it, and I'm not going to do it. We need a younger person who will be the champion of it, and who could run with it." We couldn't get the young person that would do it. Mm. There were other things that were done, but This didn't take. Now they're doing it. By the way, I joined Withum 20 years ago. I had hired a full-time salesperson 12 years before that. Withum hired their first full-time salesperson 3 years after I joined them.
Oh, wow.
Today,
What was the size of your firm when you joined Withum?
I had 14 people.
You had 14.
I had me and 2 partners, and we had 3 admin and 8 accountants. Of the 8 accountants, every one of them we hired out of school and trained them. We were doing SEC. We had an SEC. We had a mutual fund client that Withum had until 3 years ago, when Withum basically totally outgrew them. I had that client for 3 years. I lost my shirt when we got the client. We didn't know what we were doing. We had to learn it. We lost our shirt. We had the client 17 years. Do you
So
think
you
I
started doing SEC audits without knowing what you were doing?
Well, I did other SEC work, but this was a mutual fund which we didn't know what to do.
Sure, yeah.
Well, so actually,
I'm sure you learned a lot. And then did you continue doing those?
we continued, and for 14 years, and with them, they had the restricted list. This was the first company on their list. This was the first one. They had, but by the way, when I got the client, actually, I did do public work, but not the year or two before then. I called my insurance carrier and told them I have a public client and I want to add to my policy. He says, I'm dropping you. I don't want any accounts that do public work.
Who said this?
The insurance carrier that I
Yeah.
had. He was a small guy. I used him because he was cheap. So it shook me up. I called Kamiko.
He was afraid.
He
Yeah.
was afraid. He didn't want to cover lawsuits.
Sure.
So Kamiko took me on, and the premium that they charged me was $1,000 a year less than that guy was charging me.
Wow. A
He was
cheaper
ripping me off.
premium?
He was ripping me off.
You thought he was cheaper.
I thought he was cheap, and then Kamiko comes out with the SEC client, $1,000 a year less.
What do you know?
By the way, most of the individual lawsuits are on not the dollar volume of lawsuits, but most of the lawsuits are on tax issues
Really?
or on compilations.
And who's getting sued?
The accountant
The
gets sued
accountants are getting sued.
on compilation. The accountant doesn't get sued on audits; they get sued on compilations.
Why is that?
You could check this with Kamiko, because there's a sophisticated readership of the audit reports. There's an unsophisticated readership of the compilations. And they think because it's on the account's letterhead, that's perfect.
So, what's after social media, Ed?
I don't know. I wish I knew. But I wish I had a young person that I could work with, and we'll figure it out. You know, there's an old guy, I think he's 79, who's on Instagram or TikTok that shows how to dress nice. And he has tremendous readership. Now, not the way you're dressed and not the way I'm dressed. He's wearing ties and suits and all this. There's trends for everything. I don't know. You know, when Twitter started, I thought it was crazy. Never heard of it. But 78 characters. What is this? When I started with the internet, I had a client that wanted to email me a file. I didn't know what he was talking about. He walked me through it. He sent me a Word file. I was using WordPerfect at the time. Mm-hmm. I was using WordPerfect and Lotus. I had to switch to Word and Excel. And the client would email me files. And I looked at the file on my screen, and it looked exactly like it did if I typed it on my computer. I started in accounting. We didn't have any machines in the office. The first electronic calculator we bought was, I think, in 1970. Hot. We bought a hot one off the truck for $625. I got this thing for $4. And
Hot calculator.
it was hot. A hot electronic digital calculator. Hot. $625 cash.
That's how much they used to be.
That was one of the first ones.
Oh, wow.
Actually, this doesn't exist anymore. Because I use this.
You use your phone.
I used to walk around with a camera. Cameras don't
Yeah,
exist.
we did. Yes.
So you want to copy? We didn't have. We used pruning, these old pruning machines, but the people listening never heard of it. I used the slide rule to do percentages.
How old are you, Ed?
82. But there are things that are going on. I remember having lunch with my staff in 1984. I remember the day because I had just bought a compact portable computer, an IBM clone. The thing weighed 30 pounds. And I'm having lunch with some of my staff, one of whom is one of the guys that said, how come that guy's making 10 grand more than me? And I said, there's going to come a day when every time you go to a client, you're going to have a computer with you. 2 years later, we started buying personal computers, or portable computers. These things weigh 30 pounds. I remember, and I had to buy like full staff.
Now it's as light as a feather.
This is it. This is it, kid.
That's it. You got it all right there.
As you said, it's all here. I bought an iPad a few years ago. I was telling somebody, he said, why don't you use it? I said, I don't need to use it. I use my computer or my iPhone.
You know what it is now? I think the next social media is people are actually going to go outside and see each other again. We're going to go backwards. We're going to go back to the days when you used to have to meet people outside and talk to each other face to face. That's what's going to happen. That's the next social media.
I don't know, but things don't go backwards. Maybe they should. Maybe some things should.
Things don't go backwards.
I had Rice Krispies for breakfast this morning with raisins. When I was 5 years old, I had Rice Krispies with raisins.
Okay.
Some things don't change, but there's going to be something new. I don't know what it is.
Wait, this isn't cornflakes with raisins. You have Rice Krispies with raisins.
Rice Krispies and
yeah, the raisins. Okay.
I had cornflakes too, but I had Cheerios. All three of them I had when I was a kid.
So Mr. Kellogg's been feeding you forever.
That's right. I should have bought the stock. I should have realized.
Should have bought the stock.
This thing did not exist 15 years ago. Didn't exist.
Yeah. This thing being the iPhone.
And the company that makes it is one of the two richest companies in the world. Didn't exist 15 years. And the guy that invented it got fired from his job because he had too many new ideas. You want to listen?
Steve got fired from his job.
You know, he gives he gives a commencement address, I think at Stanford, that everybody should listen to. And he talks about, he took a course in calligraphy. He didn't want to, he dropped out of school, but he kept going to took some classes that he took a class in calligraphy. And then when he designed the Mac, he had elegant type styles. People don't understand how ideas come from.
There's art in all of it too, though.
It's not. I recommend.
It's just like I said earlier, you're creating something new. Anything that you're doing as an accountant, as business, you're creating something new. So whether it's creative marketing that you're doing or creative branding or creating anything, you get the enjoyment in the creation part of it too, in the art. That's why people connect with Apple so much, or they connect with that typeset of font, or that difference is because it taps into something bigger than just getting the work done.
I remember when BlackBerry came out, a cousin of mine who was an investment banker got one of the first BlackBerries. He was going crazy about it, showing it to me and everything. It doesn't exist today.
Some things exist and some things don't, yeah.
QuickBooks, by the way, QuickBooks, Microsoft, they came out with the subscription model. Instead of selling the CDs.
Yep. You used to be able to just buy it once, and then people would complain when they had to upgrade it.
Yeah,
3 or 4 years later, when you
every 3-4 years upgrade.
You're forced to an upgrade, yeah.
And now they're dropping the DVDs. DVDs don't exist.
It's just all evolving. It's all easier now. It's supposed to be.
We went from records which some people are going back to. Those are hobby. It went from records to 8-track.
My daughter buys records. My daughter has a record player. It skipped me. I never had a record player. My dad is sharing his records with my daughter.
I practically threw away all my records probably 15 years ago.
And now kids are buying those crates of records.
Yeah.
And listening to them and using them. Like it does get cyclical sometimes. It's more for nostalgic purposes too. But I think that's what I mean when I say the next form of social media is going to be face-to-face again, or more of that.
It's going to be different.
Different.
I don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be different. And it's not something we maybe could imagine today.
But it's all forms of mass communication, and it's all ways of reaching people. And I guess it's when you put the glasses on and you feel like you can be in the room with people.
When I was a kid, a doctor came to the house, gave me a shot. Today, you can't even go to the doctor's office. They telemed it. They do it over the internet, and they give you wear an iPhone or something, an iWatch that measures your statistics, and you don't even get to speak to a doctor. And a doctor you go to the office to see won't go to the hospital when you're in the hospital. Doctor in the hospital won't see you in an office. Medicine has changed completely, and everything is going to change. How it's going to change, I don't know.
But accounting, most of your message in the book and in your articles is it's not really changing. People are just putting a different name on an old thing. Write-up became CAS, and this became that. And it's like we're still doing a lot of the, but you said it also in your book, is write-up as you knew it back then no longer exists.
It does exist. It's called Client Accounting Service, and I tend to.
But the type of write-up that you did,
yeah,
what I'm quoting or what I'm saying from the book, the type of write-up that you did by taking the statements and keying them into something else that didn't have them.
Handwriting it into
yeah.
Doesn't exist anymore.
That doesn't exist anymore. It's evolved.
But the process exists. It's now, you know what the future of accounting is? Every business in the United States and probably the world is no longer going to have an in-house bookkeeping or finance department. It's all going to be outsourced. Every one of those things.
So it's only going to make accounting more relevant.
Well, I'll tell you what hasn't changed since my father started in accounting, and since Luca Pacioli came up with debits equal credits, the advising the clients. and the advice is always going to be needed, because to synthesize everything that's going on in business and the economy and human resources and in interpersonal relationships and in controls, somebody has to advise the client about it. And it's the CPA, because we're the only ones who have access to all the information. And another growth area is the accounting firms are going to grow larger managing money, because the clients are going to want everything under one umbrella.
That's where you and Ron Baker agree with wholeheartedly, is the relationship is what matters. All that other stuff that we may have been doing and getting paid for, some of it, a lot of the compliance and a lot of the things that will just fully be automated or AI will take over, that does not replace the relationship with the client.
That's right.
None of it does. We still have that, and we can still charge for that.
But it could be on Zoom, and it could be done over the phone, and it could be done electronically.
Or on social media.
When social media, I have a friend, Gino Malmacci, got 125 new tax clients from Facebook in 2 years.
Yeah.
He stopped doing it because he was getting too many new clients, and he had a certain infrastructure. And he did this 4 years ago during COVID. People are doing it. It's working. I gave a speech at the Union County chapter of the New Jersey Society in November. Most of these people don't use smart scanning for tax returns. And I knew that beforehand. I was going to talk about it. I'm driving to the meeting, and it shows up on my screen in my car that I had a text message. There was a download that upgraded, which I didn't know about. It's the first text message I got. I pushed the button on the screen, and it read the text message to me. And if I wanted to, I could have pushed another button and called the guy back or dictated a text message. And these people they don't use the artificial intelligence to get tax returns done, and they complain they can't get help. Things are accelerating at a very fast rate right now, and if you don't try to keep up, you're going to fall way behind. Imagine the people who are not keeping up.
Intentionally too. Some people are intentionally blocking it all out.
And I get a guy that's 62 says, "Well, I'm going to retire in 3 years. What do I got to know this stuff for?" And then I knew when he
But
was
with
60.
that attitude, what's going to happen? Like in those 3 years, it's going to be miserable. That person's going to be miserable, and they're not going to enjoy their last 3 years of work. Whereas you just kept going. They had to kick you out. That's the definition of success, though. Being successful is enjoying it till your last day.
You know what's good when I talk to young people, or I don't see them like I used to, but when I used to go in New York,
They don't let you do the field trips anymore.
I was thinking of doing it this year. I didn't, but I'm going to do it next year. By the way, I teach at college. I teach. I'm teaching in a classroom. I had 75 students last semester, and I loved every minute of it. And I'm teaching.
You're teaching at Accounting High right now.
Thank you. I taught last semester three colleges. I didn't realize I reached my capacity. I couldn't do that. I did three courses a week, 3 hours each week. I had to entertain, teach, excite, motivate. I had to spend 8-10 hours preparing each for a 3-hour lesson. Mm-hmm. So I told 2 of the colleges I'm not doing it, but I kept the
But it's
one.
entertaining too. You got to keep them entertained.
I'm in a room with 75 young people, and they ask me questions. You know, the first 2 weeks, nothing. And then starting the 3rd week, I give a break. It's a 4-hour course. I give a break, and they start lining up to ask me questions. And now at the end of the class, they're lined up for a half hour asking me stuff.
What are you teaching them?
What?
What are you teaching them?
Well,
101?
I'm teaching the basic accounting next semester, the basic course. Last semester, I taught managerial accounting for people business majors who are not going to be CPAs. Mm-hmm. I taught auditing at the graduate level last semester, and I taught a Christian university on how people who are going to be pastors and ministers on the financial management of a church.
Oh, wow.
But it was too much, so I'm only going to do one from now.
Did you apply for all of these jobs at first?
No, they all asked.
They just found you?
They all,
So you said yes to everything, though. You said yes to all the opportunities.
said yes, and what happened was that at Fairleigh Dickinson, I've been teaching off and on from 1976. Since COVID, I've been teaching at either Fairleigh Dickinson or Baruch College, 1 course a semester, and there was no overlapping. This past semester, I turned down Baruch 2 semesters in a row. So she said, because she wanted me to teach a course two days a week at the school. I didn't want to go in 2 days. So she says, what will it take to get you to teach? I said, I just want 1 course, 1 day a week. So she called me up like 3 weeks after that, after I already was committed to Philly Dickinson. I got your course. I combined the 2, so I couldn't say no.
Can't say no. Do you ever regret saying yes to too many things in your career or in anything, too many opportunities?
You tell me, do I ever regret taking opportunities? No. Every opportunity was a learning experience. You don't learn unless you do new things. And you don't do new things without making mistakes. And that's another way of learning. So everything's an opportunity. I like learning new things. One of the reasons I have so many, certifications, at every certification from the AICPA, is because I like learning new things.
Have you gotten better at saying no to some things?
Yeah.
What are some things that you say no to now?
Well, I don't take any new clients anymore.
Okay.
I say no. I said no to Fairleigh Dickinson for next semester. Mm-hmm. I stopped teaching. I gave 25 different webinars for CPA Academy. So I told them that I can't do it anymore. Unless they pay me a lot of money, which they
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
So I said no to that. And I don't miss anything that I said no to. But I never regretted saying yes to anything.
Never regret saying yes. I love that because you have to commit to something. Once you do say yes to something, you got to do it to your fullest. It sounds like that's what you've always done.
I wanted the best that anybody could do.
Best. What's your best
I
book?
didn't say no to you and Jason when you wanted to beat me up on timesheets.
Yeah. You didn't
Now
say
that-
no to
now
that.
that-
You almost did though. But ever since then, you've wanted to come back on though too. So you like this.
I like, for two reasons. One, I like talking to you, and when you don't post anything negative about me on social media like some of the other people.
And some other people are poking fun or making jabs on social media.
Yeah, I said, screw them, but Ron Becker never said anything negative about me on social media. His partner did, Ed Kless, but Ron never said anything negative. Never said
Nobody should be posting negative stuff on social media,
No.
though. That tends to be what it is. That's one side of social media, but there is the positive side of it too. So
You don't make
know.
friends saying negative things, and it could come back to bite you in the ass.
but you make fans saying negative things, and you can draw a crowd saying negative things. That's what people
you
do.
get attention. You get more attention being negative than positive.
Yeah, on social media for sure.
But
That's the fire that ignites it.
yeah, but I'm not into that game.
That's the spark that ignites the fire of social media.
Teaching and helping people grow.
Well, but you got to be doing it for selfish reasons. You got to get some fulfillment out of it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be writing every single day. And you enjoy doing it. That's the thing. Like you get a writer's high because you're writing and you write something that you think is the best. And then you show your kid and he's like, Dad, this is just like everything else you wrote.
I said, well, now I'm writing. Oh, I'm writing more articles for the stamp. I collect first day covers. That's part of stamp collecting. So I'm writing articles now about what I collect.
So in all of your stamp collecting, we've talked about this on the show too. Did you enjoy the collection process, but you probably have some stuff that's worth a lot of money. Have you ever sold any of your stamps?
I have nothing that's worth any money.
Okay, so
I have and maybe three things. No, I may have three things that are worth money. I make 20 to 30 purchases a month on eBay. Some of the purchases are for $3 or $4. Very rarely are they more than $20. Everything that I buy on eBay.
Did you expect them to be worth something someday, though?
No, listen.
Okay.
The minute it gets into my house, they're not worth 10 cents. People don't collect this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
If I golf, I have friends. I golf. I spend money golfing. I buy new clubs.
Sure.
I have friends that buy every new club that comes out. They buy.
Yep.
And I have friend who's a photographer. He buys these cameras. They weigh a ton. These people don't expect a return on their investment.
That's true.
I'm collecting stamps. Why do I have to expect a return? I don't buy expensive stuff. I don't invest in stamps. I collect them. I enjoy collecting. I have an oddball way of collecting, and now I'm writing about it. And
So over the years, you've been collecting stamps for how many years?
since I was 8.
Wow. Yeah, because you used to write like into the journal or to get. You had told the story about it before, but so they've accumulated. How do you decide what to keep and what to throw away? If all those years, when you eventually move or do things like that,
Never throw anything
I guess you
away.
don't have to throw them away because they're stamps. They're tiny.
I told my son, when I die, everything in all these boxes, throw away. These boxes sent to the Philatelic Society. They're not worth anything, but I tell stories.
Yeah, yeah. The stamps themselves tell stories too because they're throughout the years.
I'll give you a story. I'll tell you a story. Cheap
We'll
stuff.
close this out with a cheap stamp story.
We have an inauguration coming up. There were two U.S. presidents were inaugurated 4 times. Can you name the 2 of them?
No.
Could you name one?
Inaugurated 4 times.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt was inaugurated 4 times because
Okay.
he ran and he won 4 terms. Barack Obama was inaugurated 4 times. I'll tell you why. He had a regular inauguration, and John Roberts, the Supreme Chief Justice, flubbed the oath. So, by the way, they wanted to have a rehearsal. Roberts said, I don't need to go to rehearsal. He flubbed the oath. So the next day, Obama had him come to the White House and swore him in again.
Okay.
So Obama's next turn, the official inauguration was on a Monday, but he had a private swearing in on Sunday, which was the constitutional date. I have envelopes canceled on each of those 4 dates.
Okay.
Not worth anything.
Right.
I made it my own picture to describe what happened. Printed on the
Turned it into a story.
Turned it into a story. I went to a print, had a printer printed for me. I have these 4 envelopes in my collection, and I exhibit it.
And
it's a
what
story.
do you have, like a picture of him holding a Bible, like getting inaugurated 4 times?
There's the Bible. One has portraits of him.
Yeah.
Thing. But that's an historical fact. It's an historical event. I have it commemorated with postmarks from Washington, D.C. on those 4 days. 2 of them were readily available by the post office. 2 of them wasn't. Now, I love this. I enjoy it. I enjoy talking about it. Worthless stuff. Worthless. But why do I care?
But it's worth your 2 cents. Can you give us like a piece of parting wisdom, Ed? Like from your years of memoirs of being a CPA, for those that haven't read the book or that aren't going to read the book, give us the last piece of parting advice.
Clients must have a CPA, but it doesn't have to must be you. Make it that must be you. Every time you interact with a client.
How do you get clients to know they must have a CPA?
They all have
I
CPA.
just turned this into longer. Yeah.
Accountants. They all
Clients must have a CPA.
Yeah, I mean, if the guy has a little candy store, works out of his house, he may not. We advise clients. We help them feel more financially secure. And every time you meet with a client, they should walk away with a takeaway from you that makes them feel valued. And that's how you have a client forever.
If you get not giving them a reason to stay, you're giving them a reason to leave.
That's right.
Right?
That's good. Yes.
Dope. All right, students, you heard it here. Class dismissed. Peace out.
Okay.